photography shopping live stream where we go online together and look for deals on photography gear and accessories. And what I'm going to start doing is try to focus on a particular uh, group of accessories, lenses, or gear for each stream. And today I decided to cover what I think are kind of essential lenses. My primary focus is on micro four thirds, but generally, when we talk about essential lenses, it really applies to any format. So we'll cover that a little bit. And it's good to see everyone here. I see John Follows and Henning and Jeff Painter and Paul. Always good to see you guys, my regulars. It's greatly appreciated, all your support you've given me through the years. And um, also, I'm going to make this an open Q&A uh, for particularly for lenses, but really on anything photography. So you can leave those in the chat section, and I'll do my best to answer them. But to get started, there are some early holiday savings, and really the very best deal, in my opinion, right now. It's really a camera lens combination. That's the OM3 with the 12 to 45 Pro. Um, because the 12 to 45 f4 Pro by itself is like $700 lens. You can get them used to around 400 to 450, but you can get the OM3 with that lens as a kit for $2,099 or $2,100 right now at Amazon. So that to me is a bargain for what you're getting. And the OM3, and I talked a lot about this last week, is my favorite camera, of course. Uh, and also I want to mention that I do have to. I started early today because I have to finish a little early. I have a photo job later today that I need to go to. So sorry for those of you that may have missed this and came at 9 or 10 o'clock. I may be done by then, but hopefully you're rewatching this and we'll still get some benefit. But I may stream again this evening. Uh, depending on how the schedule goes today, and if I can finish the job quickly enough, because I'm also meeting with a student. But anyhow, so really, I think let's talk about the micro four third lenses first. And I I really think that the kit lens that you get with your camera, whether it's the 14 to 42, um, whether it's the pancake or the zoom, like, and I'll show you the lenses on the various camera bodies that I have. But this is the 14 to 42 kit lens that you get with a. Usually they get sell this with the EM10 Mark II, or I'm sorry, the EM10 series, right? I don't see this, at least here in the US. I don't see this lens come too often with any other camera body, which is unfortunate. But the non-power zoom version, the regular one, which you have to manually zoom in and out, is available now and on sale for $149. So whether you get the power zoom version or the manual zoom version, optically they're very good. I would give a little bit of an edge to the power zoom version, but it's for all intents and purposes, optically they're very, very good, and it's very, very close to uh, the 12 to 45 Pro. Let me just show you over here real quick. Um, my setup that I'm taking with me this morning to the photo job because it's an event. So I packed my bag here, and basically I have two Godox flashes, my OM3 with 12 to 45, and I also am bringing my Canon because my student is a Canon shooter, so I need to help them with their Canon settings and things. But for the Canon, I'm bringing the 24 to 105 kit lens that you can get with this. This is it's a great lens. I think I only paid like $300 or $400 for it. I can't remember. And then also the 50 millimeter prime for the Canon. And then Also, I'm bringing my 35 to 100 f2.8. This is a Panasonic lens. This is the version one that was gifted to me by one of my viewers, so I really appreciate that. Uh, but you can get these for about $400. And this is an excellent lens, the 35 to 100 f2.8. I just like that it's much smaller than the Olympus version, which is the 40 to 150 f2.8. This is a lot smaller, and I have a lens hood on here. I always buy metal lens hoods for my lenses, to reduce glare, but also primarily to protect the front element. Uh, and then I have my Godox. This is the IT30. So I'm going to use this as a trigger for my Godox. These are Godox V1s, round heads. And then what do I have over here? Oh, this is a lens I'm testing. This is for Micro Four Thirds. It's an interesting lens, but it hasn't been released yet, so I'm under an NDA on this one. And then underneath here, I have my DJI microphones because I also need to do some video work while I'm there. So that'll be a fun job today. And then of course batteries and extra arc Swiss plates and microfiber cloths up in here. And that's oh, and then one more thing is I always like to bring a power bank so that because when I set up my camera for video, I'm going to have it on a tripod and I'm going to power the camera with a power bank so I don't drain the battery because uh, it should be about a 2-hour event, which is kind of stretching it a little bit to run on battery only. So I'm going to use the USB port. So that's my setup, and that's what I mean. The two essential lenses really is your kit lens. In this case, is the 12 to 45 f4 Pro. And a common question I get is it worth it to upgrade your kit lens to the 12 to 45 f4 Pro? Because uh, basically they're the same lens. This is a constant f4, but the kit lens is a 3.5 to 5.6. So it's really only a stop slower on the long end. And I would say, unless you need weather sealing, okay, I don't think you really need to upgrade to this lens if you already have the kit lens, the 14 to 42. Yeah, this is a little wider and a hair longer on the long end and a little faster on the long end. But ultimately, there's not going to be much difference in your photography between the two. This is certainly sharper, no question about that. And it would technically make a very nice upgrade. But uh, if you're going to buy your next lens, if your kit lens is whether it's the 14 to 42 kit lens, like I showed here, because you can see that, I mean, this one's collapsed now, but let me extend it. The regular non-zoom one. This is quite a bit smaller. Uh, there's some other advantages to this 12 to 45. It's easier to get filters for them if you like to use filters. If you need weather sealing and you want a sharper image, yeah, this is a nice upgrade. I would recommend you get this used though. You can find them used for about 400, between 4 and 450, like in minty condition. And that's the way I would go with it. And then also, if you buy used, make sure they include the lens hood because I bought mine used and I didn't get it. And then I went to go buy one and they're like $40, $50 and you can't find generic lens hoods. And you can't use metal lens hoods because it's so wide, you start to get vignetting on the wide end. So you have to use the pedal shape uh, bayonet mount style lens hood that comes with the lens. So when I find a generic lens hood for it, I'm going to buy one. But as it is right now, I don't have one because I bought it used and I didn't think getting a lens hood would be a big deal. But I ain't paying 40, $50 for a plastic lens hood. So there's that. And the other thing is, and Henning just reminded me, the 12 to 40 f 2.8 is also an option. It's a little bigger and heavier. So I recommend this lens for the OM1. This lens is like it's like bread and butter on the OM1. So if you have the OM1, I think if you have any other camera other than the OM1 or EM1, you should get the 12 to 45 f4. But on an OM1, this balances perfectly, and you get that extra stop of light. You lose a little bit on the long end in terms of focal length, but it's irrelevant at 5 millimeters on the long end. 5 millimeters on the short end is a big deal, but on the long end, not a big deal. But this is a terrific lens, very, very sharp, uh, and you know, s- easy to get filters for this also for 62 millimeters, weather sealed. So if you do event photography in low light all the time, particularly like night parties, a lot of holiday season things are coming. So I'm going to be a little bit busy this next couple months. But the having an f2.8, if you're not going to use flash, is going to make a big difference also. So, but if you use flash at event photography, it doesn't matter if you use the 12 to 45 or this one, but I would recommend this one to give you options uh, for lower light situations. This makes a big deal. So that is really the very first lens you should get. Try to always buy your camera body with the kit lens. And I would say that's almost irregardless of what camera system you shoot, Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever. For example, I bought my Sony. It didn't come with a kit lens. I don't think there's any kit lens options for it, but I bought the 20 to 60 kit lens, the little pancake tiny thing that they have for it. For my Fujifilm, I bought the 18 to 55 kit lens, is a 2.8 to f4. These are staple lenses, essential, I think, to any photographer, whether you're just getting started or you're an enthusiast. It's your all-purpose lens, and I think it's very important. Now, the lens that it's really gonna depend on what kind of photography that you do, um, or like to do, I should say. You know, as if you're doing professional work, I would say it'd have to be like a 40 to 150, or the 2.8 or the 35 to 100 2.8. Those would be like professional level. These are your standard zoom focal lengths on the longer end, and it complements the kit lens, whether it's the 12 to 45, 12 to 40, 14 to 42. It complements the kit lens very nicely. So that said, we have a lot of choices in that space. We have the 40 to 150 kit lens, right, which is a bargain right now. It's $168. We have the 40 to 150 f4, which is there's a holiday deal on that right now. I'm so tempted to get it. It's selling for $649 or something right now. That is a steal for that lens. And I'm sorry, by the way, I am an affiliate for Amazon and B&H, and I have links down below to all this stuff for my deals page, robtrek.com/deals. Uh, the 40 to 150, it's a little bigger than this. Okay. Well, yeah, it's closer to the 12 to 40 size, but it's a 40 to 150 is very compact for what it is. And it is super sharp from wide to long. And then another choice we have is the 40 to 150 f2.8. That's not a lens I own, but it's it's bigger, right? Not massively so, but it's a substantially larger lens. And again, it's tack sharp, professional level, very fast focusing. So I would say your second lens should be something in that range, another zoom lens in that range, 40, in the 40 to 150 range. If we're talking about other camera brands, I would say on Fuji, the 55 to 200 or the 70 to 300. Uh, those are excellent lenses from Fujifilm on, uh, Canon, Nikon, Sony, the full frame stuff. The 70 to 200 f4. I don't see any reason to buy an f2.8 when we're talking about a 70 to 200. Uh, the depth of field is more than shallow enough if that's what you're thinking about. Your light levels, typically, a full frame, you're not gonna have to worry about your ISO. You can bump your ISO up quite a bit, uh, and stay at f4. Uh, the 2.8s, again, have a place. I would say, again, if you're doing a lot of low light photography indoors, events, particularly if you're doing stage work, like if you're photographing, uh, actors and stuff on the stage where they're moving around a lot and you have to keep your shutter speeds up, then yeah, get an f2.8. But I think for most of us, including myself, even for stage work, an f4 is fine. Uh, and that's why I'm very tempted to get the 40 to 150 f4 now that it's on sale, uh, for my Micro Four Thirds system. But that said, if you're on a budget, you're not missing much by getting this lens, the $168 lens, 40 to 150 f4 to f5.6. Uh, it's not as sharp on the long end, you know, excuse me, as the 40 to 150 Pro versions, but it is still a very, very sharp lens, and I've gotten terrific results with this. Robin Wong just did a video on this lens, uh, using it for stage work, and he got excellent images with this lens. As have I. I have gotten many excellent images out of this lens for paid jobs. So that's why I've never ventured for the 40 to 150 2.8 or the more recent 40 to 150 f4 because I don't need weather sealing. If you need weather sealing, then you have to go for the pro lenses. But I would recommend the 40 to 150 f4 pro lens, uh, because it's half the price of the 2.8 and it's still weather sealed and it's only a stop slower and you're not going to really have any issues, uh, with low light between f2.8 and f4. But I would say, if you really want the best low light performance, you want to get the f2.8, no question. And that's why I'm bringing the Panasonic version, the 35 to 100 f2.8, because it's just so much smaller, and I don't need that extra reach. 100 millimeters. This is a 70 to 200 equivalent. Uh, I don't really need more than 100 millimeters. For most stage work, you can be pretty far back in the theater and still get pretty close up to the to the action on stage. Unless you're in a nosebleed seats, then yeah, you might want a little more reach. So there you have it. Two zooms. That's all you need to do probably 99% of your photography. You can probably, uh, get away with just those two lenses forever. And from there, now we're talking about more, and that's for general photography, right? You can do everything with just those two lenses. And I would argue most people don't need to buy anything else. You get a 12 to 45 and a 40 to 150 f4. You're done. Uh, Now, for more specialty type stuff, right? Talking about prime lenses from super wide fisheye circular stuff to super telephoto like a 300 f4. If you're going to buy your first prime, it's really going to depend on what kind of photography you do. So I have a 45, here's a 17, and I have a 25 in silver. These are all 1.8 lenses, f1.8, very, very fast, excellent for low light. And, if you like to do street photography, I would argue the 17 is probably your best choice if you like to do more environmental type photography, where you take a picture of the person, but you also want to include the environment around them. If they're standing in an alleyway, standing in front of a beautiful building or statue, this makes a lot more sense. Or they're standing, on the waterfront. This will give you some context of where the picture's taken. If you're taking groups of people, like crowds, also again the 17. The 25 is sort of a more standard focal length. uh, it's still relatively wide, and you can capture a lot of the environment with this lens. But you can also get up close and do really nice portraits with this, and get a nice shallow depth of field. So if you're doing a mixed bag of things, close up portraits like head, chest up type stuff, and you want to capture a little bit of the environment. If you're standing back a little further, maybe across the street or, 3, 4 meters away, 10, 12 feet, this is a great lens. It's not great for getting up close and including the environment, but it's really good for just about every other kind of street photography and portrait work. You can get away with this lens. The 25 1.8 gives you excellent depth of field, and all three of these lenses, I'll talk about the general performance, but the 25 1.8, I would say, is probably the best optically in terms of performance out of the three. If we're talking about shooting wide open at f1.8. And then the 45 is your classic portrait lens, right? If you're doing primarily shoulder up, even full body, if you back up a little bit, but it's a very compressed field of view. So it's going to isolate your subject and give you a really shallow depth of field if you're going to shoot this wide open. So if you like doing portraits, right, this is the way to go. Whether it's full body portraits, waist up, shoulder up, those kind of things. This lens will do portraits like no other lens, and it's also on sale right now for I think $250. Again, it's on my deal page in the links below. This will do portraits like amazingly. There's no need to buy any other lens. If you're a portrait photographer or like to do portraits of your kids and family, uh, this is the lens to go, the way to go. Uh, so that's the kind of general, I would say, 17 millimeter for street environmental portraits. 25 is more general, all purpose. Uh, a lot of the great photographers in history, the masters of photographer, all they used was this 25 millimeter or 50 millimeter equivalent. And they got fantastic shots, and you can see them. They're really good. Uh, I think like Cartier-Bresson was one that just used this 50, but the 45 can be used for street also. A photographer that liked to use uh, longer focal lengths for street photography is like Sal Leader, and he's really known for you know short telephoto type street photography work. He likes using this, but his style was really interesting. And it's very nostalgic because of the time that he used this focal length. But these primes, these are the three primes. You can get them in any order depending on your photography. If you wanted to pick your first one out of these three, honestly, I for me it would be the 17. It would be the 17 because I like the wider field of view for most of my street photography. I like the wider field of view even for doing portraits. I like getting up close and getting a wide field of view for doing portraits even. I really like this. If you don't like wide angle shots, the 25. But if you primarily like getting in close to your subjects or getting back from your, this is really just for doing portraits. Is what I found. So I like this lens a lot, but it's actually of the three primes that I have, this is the least used for me because of the style of photography I like to do. I rarely do close, tight. Let me refer, not close. I shouldn't say close. I should say tight, highly compressed type portrait work. I don't do that very often. You can get a perfectly serviceable portrait with this lens, but it just feels kind of stale to me. Like everybody does that. Uh, so I like to be a little bit different and getting closer with a wide angle 17. Uh, but if you're not sure, the 25 kind of does both, right? Does great portraits, does great street with environmental. I would think about the 25 1.8. But depending on your style, you may prefer the 17 or the 45, but eventually you can get them all. You know, the 25 right now, the version 2, I didn't see a version 1 available, but maybe. Right now is on sale, like $100 off. It's like 444 $445 right now, and it's weather sealed. So you can probably find the version 1 for about $100 less than that. But if you want the weather sealing, you have to get the version 2, and it's $445, I believe. Again, you have to check my deal page. This is on sale for about 250. This typically goes for $300-400. The 17. This is the version 1 that has the clutch. You'll probably, you know, I never use this manual focus clutch. Uh, if I want to do manual focus, I will just put it in the menu, go in the menu and change it to manual focus, like the super control panel, and change it to manual focus. But it's very rare I do manual focus with this lens. So the version 2 is weather sealed. Optically, they're the same. There might be some better flare resistance with the new versions because of different coatings, but for all intents and purposes, optically they're identical. Now, the overall performance of these three lenses are excellent. The best of the three is the 25, in my opinion. In terms of shooting wide open, it's sharp in the center, very, very sharp in the center, starting wide open, but the corners start to fall off a little bit. So once you get to about 2.8 f4, you'll be fine. Sharp corner to corner, it's very good. The 17, this thing is a little bit soft, wide open for me. There's a lot of sample variation out there, but the general consensus is this lens is not sharp until you get to about f4. Okay, then it's tack sharp. F5 5.6 it's at its best, and that's been my experience as well. Some people get extremely sharp images even wide open with their 17. I mean, I've heard reports all over the place on this lens because of sample variation. But I think by design, 1.8 is not the sharpest. Okay, it's not bad. I mean, you have to pixel peep to see it, but it's really at f4 that this lens shines. F4 and f5.6. The 45 is sharper wide open than the 17, but not as sharp as the 25. So it's very good. Again, this lens, it gets really, really good at f4, f5.6. But if you do shoot this wide open, it's going to be, you have to really pixel peep to see the tiniest bit of softness, maybe on an eyelash or something. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to see really any problems with a normal, if you're going to normally view this. If you don't pixel peep this lens, f1.8 is very, very sharp. Unlike the 17, f1.8 you can see it's a little bit soft at 1.8 without pixel peeping. You can just look at the image and see, yeah, that's just a little bit, could be a little sharper. But typically for street photography, you're shooting at f5.6, you know, and if you're going to be doing portraits, like getting up close to your subject, shooting at 1.8 won't matter because you're filling the frame with the subject and then getting some of the environment, which is going to be blurred out. And when you fill the frame mostly with the subject, you can't tell any difference in sharpness, really. The perceived sharpness of the lens is going to be very, very high. But this is a great lens. And I would, I'd say it's probably, this was my most used lens. It's been a while since I've used any of these because I use the 12 to 45 Pro now, mostly for myself. But if you do need low light, you want shallower depth of field, uh, these three are all excellent lenses. You can get all three probably combined for about $1,000. You know, if you really shop around, uh, like you can get the 25 and the 45, 25 version 2 with weather sealing, and the 45 it's going to add up to about $700, and then you can find the 17 used for about 300. Right, brand new. I think this is like 500, but going used on all three will be a little under 1,000. I would recommend because of the holiday deals right now, just to get both of these brand new and find this one used somewhere. Unless you need weather sealing, then you're going to have to buy new and spend $500. But this is an excellent trio of lenses. Okay, so let me pause here and look at the chat section, see if there's any questions. Uh, oh, I see. Paul, you bought an EM10 Mark II. Awesome, terrific camera. And yeah, Henning says, he owns the 12 to 42.8. Is there an advantage I missed? Can it that? Yeah, you're not okay. So Henning's asking, he has that 12 to 40 f2.8. Are you missing anything with the 12 to 45? No, not at all. Not optically. Optically, you're not missing anything. The key difference is the size and weight. The 12 to 45 is substantially smaller. Okay, I'm going to take lens hoods off and the filters, and so it's substantially smaller. That's why I like this one on every other camera except the OM1. On the OM1, I prefer the 12 to 40. Uh, I just like the faster f2.8, and the options that it give you, the flexibility. But I don't miss the 2.8 when I'm using it on my OM3. I feel like this balances very, very nicely right here. Okay. So those are your essential lenses, zooms and primes. Those two zooms and the three primes. The direction that you want to go is I would go for the two zooms first, assuming you already have a kit lens of some kind. Uh, you want to get a 40 to 150 kit lens, or the 40 to 150 if you need weather sealing f4 and you want sharp images from on the longer end. It's very, very sharp, much better than the 40 to 150. And then those three primes. Okay. And then Paul says, my 12 to 42.8 is 10 years old now. How good do you think the weather sealing is would still be? I think it's fine. I wouldn't push it. It's not brand new, and I'm sure it's not as sealed as it was. Uh, but I've not heard anybody say that they've had problems with their 12 to 40 weather sealing. In the 12 years I've been doing, 10 or 12 years, however long I've been doing YouTube in photography, I've never heard someone tell me that watch out for the weather sealing on the 12 to 40 or any of the weather sealing on any of the lenses. But in from a in theory, right, the rubber seals and uh and wear and tear eventually do take out the integrity of this weather sealing. So I would say if you kept the lens stored in a relatively humidity controlled environment, like a house that has central air conditioning, or you have a dry cabinet like I do, uh, all the better. All the better. It should last long, long time. And Demto says, I currently got the OM1 plus 90 macro for mainly macro insect stuff. What would be a good traveling lens to add to that set? Yeah, just the 12 to 45 would be an excellent addition. The 12 to 45 or the 12 to, if you have the OM1, I would get the 12 to 40 f2.8. Yeah, this lens right here is a perfect companion to the 90. And then the lenses I would avoid, one other lens that is excellent that I haven't talked about is the 12 to 100 f4. So I think in your situation, the 12 to 100 f4 would be a better choice than even the 12 to 40 or 12 to 45. If you want something, because the 12 to 100 is about the same size and weight as your 90 macro, so keep that in mind. It may be a hair smaller, but that would be an excellent companion to your 90 macro, is a 12 to 40 or 12 to 100 f4. Other than that, maybe this 12 to 40 f2.8 if you need an extra stop, but I don't think you really need it. If size and weight are an issue, I would argue the 12 to 45 f4, or even a kit lens, 14 to 42, wouldn't be a bad idea. And let's see. Do you know a metal lens hood made for the 12 to 40 f2.8? No, I'm not aware of any. Uh, but you need to, if you do find one, make sure it doesn't come straight out flush. Like on my 45, you can see it's pretty much flush, right, with the lens barrel. If you get a metal lens hood for this, you need to make sure it's wider, like it flares in an outward direction, or is concave to the lens, because you'll get vignetting on the wide end otherwise. And I haven't seen a metal lens hood like that. I've seen rubber lens hoods, but I haven't tried them. The rubber lens hoods that kind of expand in and out, they do flare in an outward direction. That would imply that you won't get vignetting on the wide end, but I haven't tried it myself. The best bet is really just to use the plastic lens hood, the bayonet style, and there's one available from JJC. That's what I bought for mine, and it was like $12 or $13. A JJC pedal lens hood, so that you don't get vignetting. I would not recommend any of the metal lens hoods, even if you do find one that flares out. Uh, the problem with metal lens hoods that would flare out is you're going to have to buy bigger filters if you like to use filters. Now, you could put the filter in between the hood and you could put the filter on first, then put the lens hood on top, but not all filters are, you're not always putting exactly a 62 millimeter filter on the front of your lens. Sometimes you have a 58 or a 72 millimeter filter that you adapt to fit onto here. So, uh, metal lens, but with a bayonet lens hood, you can put just about any size filter you want. You can just reverse the lens hood and keep it together. But okay. Uh, yeah, thank you. Birds for Life, the 12 to 100. That would be an excellent, excellent choice. And Adam says the only thing missing from the 12 to 45 f4 are the convenience feature, no focus clutch, no extra button, great image quality, size, and price. Yes. So, yeah, I never use the function button, or manual focus ring on my 12 to 40, so I don't miss it at all on my 12 to 45. Now, a lot of people love that little focus clutch. I found it to be annoying personally because unless I remember to uh, turn off the focus clutch in my camera, I can't tell you how many times when I first got that lens, I would come back home and all my images are out of focus because or some portion of them because I didn't catch it would be out of focus because the focus clutch was engaged to shoot in manual focus. So now I have it in my custom settings to always disable the focus clutch. The function button, I didn't find much use for either because the OM1 has so many buttons on it already. And all of the OM system and Olympus cameras have a lot of programmable function buttons, more than enough for most cases. But I get it. Some people have a workflow that having a function button, having a manual focus clutch streamlines that for them a lot, right? They don't have to dive into the menu, they don't have to assign a button or take away a function that they would otherwise use on a button. And they really appreciate the features of the focus clutch and the function button being on the lens. For me, the only switch that I do like on a lens is the image stabilization. If a lens has built-in image stabilization, I do like a switch right on the lens for that. Because image stabilization, although 99% of the time I leave in auto, there are times when, I would like to turn it off. I don't need it, you know. For example, my birds in flight photography, if I'm shooting a 1/2000th, 1/4000th of a second, I'd rather turn the image stabilization off because you don't really need it at those shutter speeds. And having image stabilization on, depending on settings and things like that, can slow your uh, frames per second a little bit. So I do like that. I also like focus limiter switches, like on the 60 macro. And we'll get into more specialty lenses here in just a minute, but I just wanted to cover your core essential lenses and the ones that are on sale, the 45 to 25, the 40 to 150 f4. These three lenses are on a super deal right now, and I can highly recommend any of those depending on the photography. But thank you for reminding me about these features. I just got the 300 f4, and I think it's thus far the sharpest lens I've ever owned. I think so too. It's the sharpest lens I've ever owned. I know that. It is an amazing, amazing lens. And good morning, ATR Bear. Good to see you. All right. So let's get into some specialty lenses. Uh, 60 millimeter macro, there's also the 90 macro. I think the 60 millimeter macro, the Olympus or OM system just raised the price on this, the retail price by $100. So it's on sale now for $499. It used to go on sale for $399, but it's on sale now for $499. So that's the best price you're going to get if you're going to be buying this now. And this does have a little switch on here, which is a focus limiter and also a one-to-one switch. But before I get into all of that, uh, this is obviously for macro photography. Now, there's a case to be made to use this as a portrait lens. It's a little tight for me to use it like that, but I found the autofocusing for normal 60 millimeter type focal length photography, it's a little bit slow. It hunts a lot. It's not as fast as, say, the 45 1.8. Because it's designed to go from one to one, like really close up photography out to infinity. So there's a little bit of a compromise, I think, in autofocus performance if we were to use this as a regular 60 millimeter 2.8 lens. You can, and it works fine if you're just point and shoot kind of person. But if you're going to try to use this as a regular lens, uh, there are better choices. only buy this lens if your intent is to do macro photography. And the one-to-one macro photography is amazing. This also has allows your camera to use the in-camera focus stacking, which you can't do with all lenses. You can do it with some of the pro lenses, and you can do it with the macro lenses from OM systems, but you can't do like in-camera stacking with a 25 or the 45, things like that. So this lens allows you to do additional features in your camera, particularly the in-camera focus stacking, that you can't do with the other primes. So that's why I would say this is a very specialized lens. The focus limiter on it, because we're dealing with very close-up photography, you can limit the lens. You can set the lens to do from the minimum focusing distance of 0.19 meters out to infinity, which is where I have it set right now. You can set it to go from 0.4 meters to infinity, which this puts it more in the normal range and will focus a little better if you're not doing macro photography. It won't hunt quite as much or try to get down to the minimum focus. And then we have our macro modes right here. You limit the range between 0.19 and zero point 0.4. And this is how I use the lens the most. Now there's a little toggle here. It's spring loaded. I can't like stick it there. You'll notice it pops back. What that does is it moves the lens to the minimum focusing distance so that you get 1-to-1. And that's very, very useful. The switch design is awful. I've seen people modify the switch with a lever so it's easier to turn and adjust, but I won't get into that. When I do it myself, I'll show you, but I haven't done it yet. But you toggle this and it moves the lens elements to the minimum focusing distance, and then you eyeball it and you get close to your subject till it's in focus. And then if you want to, you can engage the autofocus, but then you're getting as close as possible, getting the maximum magnification out of this lens when you toggle it 1-to-1. So it's a very, very useful feature. And again, a very specialized lens. If you enjoy macro photography, in-camera focus stacking, and you can use it as a normal portrait lens, in a pinch. This is a great lens, $4.99, and it's very, very sharp, wide open. And macro lenses have other special properties that are not really focused on as much as, say, a 25, like the other normal primes. The pro primes is an exception, but the normal primes, this one is designed to have zero distortion when you're shooting up like this close, right? It's designed so that you get perfect, well, you're supposed to anyway. And I haven't seen anything otherwise, right? It's always been excellent. But, you know, because a lot of people use these for scientific, forensics. People use macro lenses for a lot of things. And macro lenses are designed to have zero distortion and maximum sharpness up close. So again, there's some optical things in this lens that make it uh, ideal for macro and close-up photography, but not so much for normal photography. Okay. Then there's the 90 macro, which is it's not a lens I own, but it's very similar in size to uh, my 35 to 100. So it's substantially larger. It has image stabilization. It has 2x magnification. And that lens is on sale, I think, right now for $15.99. So like 3 times the price of the 60. You gotta, and I would say it's probably the very best macro lens out there of any brand. It's weather sealed. The 60 macro is also weather sealed, I might add. Okay. Uh, but yeah, 3 times the price. I think I can get 1.5x magnification, kind of halfway there to what the 90 can do using a diopter. that I also have in my deal page at the bottom. It's like $43. It just clips on the front, and I get 1.5x magnification with that. It's close enough for me. If I was more hardcore macro guy, I would get the 90, no question. Image stabilization, weather sealing, 2x magnification. You get a lot there, but you pay a lot more, 3 times the price, right? Okay, Birds for Life says, love my nifty 60. 60 was my first storm system lens and probably one of the best bang for bucks lens you can get for the system, at least if you're in the macro and close up. Yes, I agree 100%. And I tried to make a really small kit and purchase a Laowa 17 1.8. Not certain on that aperture manual lens. Cute lens, but cannot seem to get sharp images even with peaking. Wonder if it's the design or got a bad copy. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that lens, but uh, let me look at it real quick. Laowa normally does a good job with their lenses, but let me just 17 millimeter. Okay, so we're talking about this lens, $149. Wow, that's cheap. Uh, I guess it's very compact from the looks of it. What's the filter thread? 46. Yeah, so this is very similar in size to the 17 autofocus. Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite as familiar with that lens uh to give you any feedback. I'm surprised though. Lao is normally very, very good. So it might be a bad copy, but I don't know how bad the images are. Uh Paired that 17 with an EP5. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar with that lens. Okay. Other specialty lenses I would call like the super telephotos, the 300 f4, which has been mentioned already. Um, this actually is, I would consider this a specialty also. Let me pull out my 300. Oh, there's my, it comes with its lens collar. So 300 f4, no question, is one of the sharpest lenses ever made by OM Systems Olympus. The autofocusing motors are extremely fast and fast aperture at f4, and for its size and weight, it's relatively compact compared to the field of view. Compared to other 300 millimeter f4 lenses in general, full frame, micro S, et cetera, it's about the same size as any 300 millimeter f4 on a full frame camera. But for micro four thirds, you get that field of view of 600 millimeters. So a lot of people like to compare this with a 600 millimeter f4 full frame lens. I would argue that's not a fair comparison, right? Um, because a 600 f4 is probably triple the size of this, or it feels like triple the size. But yeah, this is not a 600 f4 equivalent. This is a 300 millimeter f4 lens. The 600 millimeter field of view is because we're using a crop sensor camera. And because we have a very high pixel density at 20 megapixels on a micro four thirds, we're getting amazing image quality out of this and amazing detail. Okay, so uh, yeah, I wish it was worded a little differently or talked about a little differently than it normally is, because people just say, oh, it's the same as the 600 f4. It's not, okay? It's not. But uh, because the cropping and field of view is because of the camera we're using, not because of the lens. But ultimately, and I have a 1.4x teleconverter, which works great with this lens. Uh, I don't know if this lens is on sale or not, but this is like $3,000. I paid 2,800 for mine a couple of years ago. But this is a very sharp, very fast lens. It's like night and day difference, okay? Another telephoto lens is the 150 to 600. That's on sale for 2,500. That's a big, heavy lens. There's just no two ways about it. Uh, and it's very sharp lens, tons of reach. Okay, double the reach that this lens has, and I would argue almost as sharp. It's not, but almost. Uh, Good enough for 99% of us, right? But if you need the reach and you're comfortable working with a monopod, maybe in a gimbal, it's a great lens. The 150 to 600. Let me go to my deal page. Oh, there's also this 50 to 200 that was released. Okay, uh, this lens, a 75 to 300. This is an amazing lens for the money, and it's on sale for 499. This is another lens that went up in price recently. So now you're gonna have to pay 499. You used to be able to get it at 399, but now it's 499. But this lens, without a doubt, is, I would say, after the 12 to 45 f4, this is probably my second most used lens. Uh, I like to take this out and I got this giant metal lens hood on it, and I had the lens hood collapsed on this, but you can see it's a huge, huge difference in size in between these two. Okay, there's just no comparison. But I've gotten so many great images from this lens, and it's a little bit slower at f6.7, but uh, for 499, this is hard to beat. Very, very hard to beat. If you don't got $3,000, but maybe you got 500, you're going to get great images with this lens. So I'm just going to go to my Flickr page. Here's one I recently took with it. OM3 oh no, this is the 40 to 150. Okay, so backing up a little bit, this is the 40 to 150 kit lens that I used. I got a great image out of there. But if you just go to my Flickr page and search, you'll see I have albums created uh, for each lens. I'm still working on it and building it up, but these are all photos that I took with the 75 to 300. I love these flower pictures. You can get really nice close up type. Look how sharp this lens is. I mean, you're not gonna be able to tell in a stream, but I've gotten amazing images out of this lens. Look at this dragonfly. You can actually, and this is heavily cropped, but you can actually see the little honeycomb pattern in the eyes, the little hairs on the nose, on the mouth, with the 75 to 300. And then, of course, birds in flight type stuff. I love this shot here. This is also heavily cropped. If you want to know how cropped it is, just click on here and you can see the original size is 1581 by 1581. So, this is what? 2.5 megapixels image. Probably 1 megapixel on the bird itself. But yeah, I'll show you one of my favorite pictures I ever took with it. It's not even a bird in flight photo. This is a nice one of a blue heron. I mean, 75 to 300. I don't know why, but this is my favorite shot. I just love the light that's and this blue jay looks really healthy. But yeah, this one I took a cut what 2022 with my OM1 and 75 to 300. So I just love the portability of this lens, the reach that I get, and the sharpness out of this lens is really good. In most situations, the lens is not the limiting factor when you're talking about super telephoto. A lot of times it's the atmosphere, especially on hot days. You're not going to get a sharp image with any lens because of the heat distortion and atmospheric distortions like haze. So a lot of times, I will take out the 75 to 300 because I don't feel like bringing the 300 f4. That 300 f4, you'll notice, the size and weight, but I usually carry it, with a rapid strap right here on the lens collar, and I have this attached. But yeah, that lens, the 40 to 150 kit lens, also very good. But uh, if we're talking about super telephoto lenses, those are the two I recommend: the 75 to 300 and the 300 f4. I would not go for the 150 to 600 because of the size. It's pretty intimidating, daunting to carry that thing around. If you need the reach, then yeah, go for it. But just keep in mind when you have to get in, and the 150 to 600 will also take teleconverters. I'm not in situations where I need that much reach, and when I do need that much reach, usually atmospheric distortions, and there's a lot of issues trying to shoot something that far away. But there's plenty of people that can really use that reach, right? They do more out in the field type things because I'm just going to like my local state parks and known spots for birding. Uh, but there are people that are more adventurous and they need the reach. I think one of my viewers, Anthony, loves his 150 to 600 because he's taking pictures of polar bears. You do not want to get close to a polar bear. If you see one, take a one shot and run, if you ask me. And you don't want to be anywhere near a polar bear. But there's a lot of situations, bison, lots of wildlife. A wolf, yeah, I would not want to be any closer than I could get with a 600 millimeter lens. So I get it. There's a place for it. And then highly specialized is the 150 to 400, kind of the halo lens. I won't talk about that because if you're looking at that lens or thinking about the lens, you don't need my opinion. Okay. Uh, let's just put it at that. There are some things in photography that people shop for that you really don't need my opinion on. You know what you're doing, you know what you want, that kind of thing, right? I'm here to help you with people getting started in photography or are enthusiasts that are thinking about trying different things. This is where I can help you the most. I'm not much help to people that are looking at a 150 to 600. I would argue not much help to people looking at a 90 macro, right? Uh, But if you're looking at a 60 macro, yeah, I can help you a lot there because the lens I use and we're probably at the same level in terms of skill set, right, in photography. But okay, uh, let's see. Adam says I had a 30-ish millimeter macro lens, never figured it out. I ended up trading it for my Fuji kit. Really enjoy the rock on fisheye though. Okay, the 30 millimeter macro lens I didn't even mention that when I was talking about specialty lenses, but there is a 30 millimeter macro. It's about the size of the 25. Okay. It'll give you one to one. The key difference, you have to get really close to get one to one. It'll do even better than one to one. But the 30 macro is better for doing like mushroom and flower photography, better than the 60. Um, because a lot of times with flowers and mushrooms, those things you do want to capture a little bit more of the environment that it's in. You want to capture sort of the ground and the pebbles and everything around the mushrooms and flowers. Maybe some of the insects crawling around. The 30 macro is a lot more interesting for that type of photography. I'm thinking about getting that lens because I would like to get a little wider field of view, but still be really close, right? Right now, my 12 to 45 gets pretty close, and I can get the kind of photography I want out of it. But a 30 macro, when the price is right, that's another lens that went up in price by like $100. It's on sale now, but uh, you used to be able to get that lens for $200 all day long. Now it's like 350 or something. It's still a good value though. But that's better for like that kind of photography where you want to get really close, super sharp, and capture some of the things around the mushrooms, maybe a cluster of mushrooms or a cluster of flowers. But you want to get close enough so you can get the fine detail, but still capture the surrounding flowers and surrounding mushrooms and fungi and all of that stuff. So 30 macro is an interesting lens. It's not ideal for one-to-one macro. The 60 is better for one-to-one, but for close-up environmental type photography, the 30 macro makes a lot of sense. And the 50 to 200 is getting great reviews beyond ambassadors. I have the 40 to 150 2.8. Should I save up for the 50 to 200? Uh, I would say probably not. I think if you need more than 150, since you already have the 40 to 150, if you need more than 150, you can get the teleconverter. But what I would recommend is saving up for the 300 f4. Then you're covered. I know it's a big gap between 150 and 300, but you get the 40 to 150, you get the 1.4x teleconverter. You're not missing much from the 50 to 200. Still getting fantastic sharpness, fantastic image quality, fantastic focusing speed, right? Because it has linear high-speed motors in it. And you'll be up to 220 something, whatever that calculation is, right? I would save up for that and get the 300 f4 Pro, and then you're completely covered. Uh, if you don't have the 40 to, if you now for people that don't have the 40 to 150 and are trying to shop these two different lenses, certainly the 50 to 200 is the superior lens, but it's nearly double the price. But it's definitely worth it if it's in your budget to go for the 50 to 200 over the 40 to 150. Um, because it's such a fabulous lens and it gives you great reach. But I think for those of you that have the 40 to 150, I'd recommend just buying a teleconverter and maybe getting a 300 f4. That would be a better use of your money because you can get a 300 f4 and a teleconverter that you can use on both lenses. You can use the teleconverter on your 300 and on your 40 to 150, and you got everything covered. Uh, More reach, and I would argue equal, if not better, sharpness than the 50 to 200, in my opinion. And good morning, Rob. Any thoughts on the Panasonic 9 millimeter for Astro? Yeah, it's fabulous. Uh, I've not used that lens, but I would, if you want a rectilinear field of view, you can use it for more than Astro. You can use it for architectural type photography, right? So, uh, yeah, and it's a $500 lens. It's really a bargain. It might be 550 now. So, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend that lens at all. The Panasonic 9 millimeter f1.7 is fabulously sharp corner to corner, and For astro, I haven't heard any issues with coma and things like that that you would normally look for in an astrophotography type shot. So I would get it, if you want to do that. Um, 'Cause it's very fast. I mean, the alternative. So let's talk about some wide angle lenses. So the telephoto side, I think we've covered. We have a few choices, right? Like I have the 8 mm 1.8, which is fisheye distortion at 8 mm, but you can get you can correct it in camera or in post processing to be rectilinear, so that the distortion doesn't bother me. And this is certainly wider than the 9 mm, substantially so. Every millimeter makes a big difference on the wide end. But this lens is substantially more expensive than the Panasonic. So I think for your use case, the Panasonic makes more sense. But this lens is super wide. Even when you correct for the fisheye distortion, uh, it's still wider than my 7 to 14. Okay. So actually, I feel like the 8 mm number on here, it's very conservative. It feels wider. It's definitely wider than my 7 to 14 Panasonic. So it's certainly wider than 9 mm. Even when you correct for distortion on this, you're getting wider than 9 mm field of view. You're still at 8, or I would argue even 7 mm on this lens. Um, Next time I'll bring this with me. Next time I see you, Shri, you can borrow mine and try it out for some Astro stuff. I don't use this lens hardly at all anymore. Um, I don't know why. It's a great lens, but usually, I just don't need f1.8. I don't need anything this fast generally because I don't do wide field astrophotography that much, like Milky Way, horizon type stuff. And for my architectural, I prefer to do panoramic type stuff. I'll take multiple images at a tighter focal length and stitch them together. That's how I prefer to do wide shots. But that said, this lens has given me great results. I think I have a page on it also. Let me see. I don't have too many pictures here, but you can see the distortion this creates. This was shot on my EM1 Mark I, and these all have art filters applied to them. I don't have any astro shots with this lens, but it's terrifically sharp. And like I said, once you correct for this distortion, it's still really, really wide. I should take this lens out more. It really does a good job. But all right. Anyway, another interesting lens on the wide end, there is the 8 to 25 f4, gives you a nice wide angle 8 mm and a normal focal view of 25 mm. I think I have that in here. This one. There's a deal on it right now for 800 bucks. That's a really good deal. The only caveat to this lens is you'll notice that it has a 72 mm filter thread. It's a pretty big lens, bigger than the 12 to 40, substantially bigger than 12 to 40 2.8. So a lot of people have said, or someone that I know that owns that lens doesn't like to take it out because of the size. Uh, but if you want this full field of view, this is a really great range, 8 to 25 mm. And the f4 aperture is decent. Not ideal for astro, obviously. You want fast as possible for astro. But yeah, I like the 8 to 25. Another kind of specialty lens I would say is like these circular fisheye lenses. I have a 7 Artisans 4 millimeter. Let me show you a couple examples of this, but this gives you a true circular fisheye, and it's like a $150 lens. Um, so on my thing, let me see, what is it, a 4 millimeter, or is it 4.5? See what comes up. Yeah, it's this one. But yeah, I'm getting this is where I put the lens up on top of my or the camera on top of my head, and the field of view is actually shoot it sees behind the camera. So I was able to get the ground and the sky all in one shot. But yeah, it's amazing. And it's fun to use this lens. You can sprinkle your portfolio a little bit with these kind of shots. I have some other ones that I really like. Uh, I don't know. They're in my album somewhere, but I didn't put them in the right. They're on my Flickr, I should say, somewhere. I just didn't put it in the right album. Uh, I think that I have that on my deal page here. This lens. It's a 4 millimeter f2.8, and it's really good for astro, actually. Because it's so wide, you can shoot at f2.8, still do like 30-second exposures. Uh, so I don't know, Sri, you may want to look at this lens also to add. Get the 9 millimeter first, but maybe uh, add this lens, the this 4 millimeter f2.8. I have it right there on my deal page. There's also the 10 millimeter f2. I wouldn't recommend this. You can use this for astro, but this had a little bit of chroma issues wide open. So it's not quite as good for astro. For everything else, it's great. These super wide angle shots for 169. And the thing is that this one I recall is rectilinear. So you don't have to worry about distortion, I don't think. I can't remember. No, this has a little bit of distortion too, but it's easy to correct for. Yeah, this lens, if I recall, this lens has, I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this is rectilinear. They just don't state it specifically. Yeah, this lens is rectilinear. Definitely. Yeah, right there. Zero distortion. So 169, I would just but I wouldn't use it for astro. I would use one of the other lenses I talked about. All right. And then one other lens I wanted to talk about, and I'm gonna have to wrap this up here shortly, is the 20 millimeter f1.4. This is a very fast lens, super sharp, and it's kind of expensive. It's not much more expensive than, say, the 25 1.8. It's not a lens I own because I have a 25 and a 17. If I had to start over again with zero lenses, this would be the first lens I get, is the 20 millimeter. If it's going to be my first prime lens, I would get this lens because it's a pretty normal field of view, but it's a little wider, not as tight, and not but not as not as wide as a 17 or something. So I feel like this is one of my favorite focal lengths when I'm using, my other camera systems where I have this focal length equivalent. I find 20 millimeters is it's just right. it's just right for everything. And having that very fast aperture really helps with low light. Okay. It doesn't feel like much difference between a 1.4 and 1.8. That's what, maybe two-thirds of a stop. But, every little bit helps when you're working in low light. So, and it's not that big. It has a 58 millimeter filter thread, so it's just a little bit smaller than a 12 to 45 f4. But yeah, this would be a lens I buy today if I didn't already have my other lenses. And it's weather sealed, right? So you get that. And oh, thank you, Stuart, for sharing that. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about that lens. How good is the DxO Photolab at correcting the body cap lens? It does not correct it. Uh, there's no profile built in for the body cap lens that I'm aware of. But honestly, I haven't tried it. Gosh, I have to look into that. But I don't believe it corrects for it at all. Let me just take a quick look. Because if it does work, if it does have a profile made for the body cap lens, I'll try it out right now. DxO Photolab. Ah, select. Okay, so Olympus, let's say M5. Olympus. Come, I don't know how to use this thing. I'm sorry. I'm working on something here. Select the lens brand. How come OM Systems is not on this? Oh, maybe it's under Zuiko. Yeah, they don't support it. So it's not supported by DxO, the 15 millimeter body cap lens. So the short answer is, uh, it's not gonna do any better job than, uh, because the denoising, it'll apply the denoising, but if you want to do any kind of sharpening and corrections, you'd have to do it manually with the sliders. Yeah, and Paul's also confirming it. Yeah, the body cap lenses aren't supported. And Moxie says, very much new to editing photos. What is correcting for body cap lenses? Well, one of the signature uh, features of DxO Photolab is their optics module, which is a customized database of combinations between camera lenses and camera bodies. And using this camera lens on different camera bodies, you might get different results. So this lens will give you different sharpening, different results using, say, an EM10 Mark II, or if you put this lens on an OM1, because they have different sensors. So DxO created a algorithm to optimize the sharpness based on the camera and lens combination. So the question is, what is correcting for body cap lenses? Basically, what they're saying, the body cap lenses are very cheap plastic lenses that don't have any electrical contacts, and DxO did not make any effort to create an algorithm to optimize the sharpness and characteristics or image quality of the lens camera combination. So when I attach, like this lens is supported, the 25 1.8, the DxO optics module or correcting, making optical corrections, is going to do it intelligently based on their testing. So it's not going to sharpen, for example, it may not sharpen the center of this lens of the image using this lens as much as uh, trying to sharpen the corners, because the corners are a little bit soft, wide open on this. But the center is very, very sharp. So the DxO optics module is going to intelligently uh, sharpen the image based on the database that DxO has developed. Uh, and and I can tell you that the results that I get out of DxO Photolab, second to none in my opinion, because of the optics module. It just does an amazing job. Now, there's an argument, something like Lightroom does not do that. Lightroom uses the factory uh, optical or distortion corrections and optical corrections. It uses the factory provided sort of algorithm. But DxO's algorithm is by far superior, and it does a much better job. Okay, let me go to, I think I've covered just about everything I wanted to cover lens-wise. So I'll make a couple of last notes here. Go to my deal page, robtrek.com/deals, and you'll see a list of my hand-picked and just about everything that we talked about today. I'll just add a couple other things, like there's a grip here for the OM3, there's some memory card deals, $40 for 256 gig V60 card. That's an amazing deal. If you don't need V60 speeds, you can get 128 gig Pro for $15. So I would get the V60 like this card here if you do sports action wildlife, get much better buffer performance. But if you don't care about buffer performance, like if you're not filling up your buffer every day, and if you do that, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't do that, I would say just get the 128 and save a bunch of money there. Put your money into one of these lenses. And then power banks. I've talked, you saw me, I pack a power bank with me everywhere I go. Uh, this is a great charger for the OM3 batteries and OM1 batteries. Here's a cheap power option. I mean, I have one of these, it works fine, but I always bring Anchor brand, and these are on sale now for a pretty good price. Um, some flashes, extension tubes, some good bags in here. Great tripods in here as well. So everything in here, I vetted. This cable tester is really useful. The DJI mics are on sale. I bought my pair. I'm going to use it today. Um, accessories, some more bags, all it, these are all great prices. Some more charging stuff, some filter accessories. But let me point out, this is the diopter I was talking to you about. This is a great addition to the 60 millimeter macro lens. This diopter set, I get a 1.5x magnification and virtually zero loss in image quality that I can tell. I can't tell any loss. So this is a great option. It just snaps on the front. And then if you wanna spend the money, you can get a Nissi, if you want a brand name. Again, I don't know what the magnification is with this. It's probably the same, but I don't know. Uh, and then some other miscellaneous lenses. I didn't really talk about these. If you're shopping a 25 millimeter 1.2 Pro, you don't need my advice. This is a good lens, you know? It's big and heavy, but people shopping this lens, they know. They know what they're shopping for. There's a few other options down here for other camera systems that I like. These are good deals. And then some flash diffusers, and that's about it. Some LED lighting. Uh, I'll talk about those maybe in another stream, but uh, let's see. And then any bag like for a TG6 kit, yes, there is. With a little cluster of attachments, something ain't so crammed, but also isn't. Yeah, it was on sale a few weeks ago, actually. But I'll show you. Maybe it's on sale again. I haven't. Uh, yeah, it was this one, I believe. But let me 10 bucks. So this one here, I'll add it to my page. They have it in various colors, but there's some room up here. Carry a couple of accessories. It's 3.2 inch, so it's not tiny, but it gives you enough room to put stuff in it, right? And it's only 10 bucks. They had one on sale. It wasn't this exact one. They had one on sale for like $6. Uh, I don't see it anymore. But again, that was a couple of weeks ago. There's even smaller ones like this. These are a little bit cramped though, right? I mean, you're gonna be able to put your camera in there and maybe a cable and a battery, but that's about it. But if that's all you need, that's fine. But there's things like that. But I would get the little bigger one so you can put other stuff in there other than just the camera. You can put like the LED adapters, maybe some LED lighting, just little things, right? Put it in there. Okay, I have to go. Um, oh, you can't see. I'm sorry. Oh, let me. Dang it. I'm a little out of practice here. I added it to my deal page, but it's this one right here. Um, it's this one. It's 3.2 inches tall, and then just tall enough to fit the camera and wide enough. So it's a nice fit for the TG7, TG5, but a little bit extra room in there to carry some other stuff. And it's 10 bucks. And then I was looking at something like this. This one here has a strap on it, but it's not much bigger than the camera. You really can't fit much stuff inside of it. Maybe a memory card and some batteries, but that's about it. But all you have to do is, just search for like TG7 case like this, and a bunch of options come up. But just keep in mind, the height, right? so that you can fit more stuff in there. Why is this one $18? This one's also kind of tight. Okay. Um, Good morning, Robert. I have to run. I have to go to a photo job. So thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you found some of that discussion helpful in thinking about lenses. And of course, to support the channel and things I do here, you can use my affiliate links that I have down below. It helps me out a lot, especially this month and next month. Going to be pretty lean here around with heating bills and things like that. But you guys, thanks for joining me today. I'll be back on Friday for photo editing. I may do it in the evening because I think it was actually Moxie Rower that asked me to do one like during like hours when someone might be home, right? And not during the middle of the day. So I can probably do that, but we'll figure it out. You guys have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon.